Hosea chapter 4 verse 6 last week when I started sharing with you about I want to marry and stay married. Say with me, I want to marry and stay married. That there are three reactions that are important. If you don't learn how to react to knowledge, it will destroy you. In Hosea chapter 4 verse 6, the Bible tells us, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children. Negative reactions we find in this are, number one, the lack of knowledge. People are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Not necessarily because they are bad people, but they lack knowledge. What you don't know can destroy you. Number two, people receive knowledge, but they reject knowledge. So, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. The third negative reaction is that they have forgotten. So, they know and they learned it, but they also forgot it. And it also destroys them. So, there are people who lack knowledge about marriage. There are people who receive knowledge, but they reject it about marriage. And it's interesting to find people who tell us that I don't need a counselor. And usually when people are getting married and are in love, they don't listen. And they don't need anybody to tell them about their love affairs. And so they reject knowledge. But wisdom is to receive knowledge. Hallelujah. A wise man increaseth knowledge. A man by his knowledge increaseth his strength. And so it is important for you to prepare for this most important part of your life, where nobody is going to teach you. No school is equipped to teach you. But what you are going to spend a major part of your years on earth you must prepare adequately. Then the fourth reaction is there are people who, even though they know, never apply the knowledge. They just learn it, they memorize it, but they never use it. I believe personally that a strong, successful marriage requires that both spouses commit themselves to learning about what they are entering into. And the three broad areas we learned last week is that you learn about the marriage institution itself. Number two, you learn about the subject of love. And number three, you learn about the male and the female differences and uniqueness. You are entering an institution and a stage that requires a lot of maturity, and it's not for children. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 11 says, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. There are things you need to put away if you are going to be able to survive a marital relationship. You put away childish things. There are some things you don't carry into your relationship. I want to suggest to all of you to mature and to grow up. Development comes with maturity. You must learn to be responsible and deal with the consequences of your choice and action to bring another person into your life to start a family. You are saying that I can look after somebody. And so I'm bringing somebody who has been under the canopy of his parents into my life. Let that person leave the comfort zone of his parents and come into my life, and I'm going to be responsible for that person. It is exciting to get married and to be in love, but the reality is that it is hard work. If you get the marriage relationships right, it will be a boost to other relationships. Many people get into a lot of difficulty in relationships because it is hard work. And 50% of all marriages end in divorce. 60% of remarriages, when they marry after divorce, also ends in divorce. And so changing partners do not make your marriages better. You have to learn how to work on yourself, understand the marriage relationship, understand the demands of the relationship, and be able to behave yourself accordingly. The product of a bad marriage relationship creates a negative spillover into society. We have street children, we have dysfunctional families, we have single parenthood, and all these are signs of broken and failed promises. Because good relationships require character. It comes with maturity, such as selflessness, stability in yourself, sacrifice, and self-control. Suddenly in marriage, you are thrust into another world. And the marriage relationship will place a lot of demands on your life. Some of them are foreseeable, others are unpredictable. Marriage will place a demand on you to give up and learn new things. There will be change in your time and space and your privacy with major shifts and adjustments. You can expect that when you marry, you are going to change yourself. There will be things about you have to change. The Bible says that God will put new wine into new wineskins. And so if you are going to survive the relationship, you will have to learn and do things you have never done before. You will have to, for example, wake up at a time you normally do not wake up. You have to bath. You have to cook and prepare breakfast. You have to meet new people. You have to spend money on things other than yourself. Your time of closing at work will even change. You have to give up personal interests. And so there are a lot of things that are going to place a demand on you. And you will have to be prepared to change yourself. A lot of things about you will change. And they must change if you are going to survive a marital relationship. Number 2, your existing friends and relationships are also going to be strained. You will have relationships with in-laws. You have to deal with relationships of your spouse. And some are thrust on you just by virtue of being married. There may be people you never will have talked to or minded, but now they come into your life either as in-laws or as friends of your spouse. Number 3, your interests and attractions will also be affected by your new relationships. You will give up some of your old habits and personal interests to meet the collective interests. So sometimes you want to rest, but as a couple, you have to go out and meet somebody or pursue an agenda that is mutually beneficial. Sometimes you have to give up your own TV programs and watch other TV programs just because you want to share fellowship. Sometimes you have to go for meetings you don't feel like, but as a couple, you are demanded to go. Love is a journey and not an event. And it goes beyond the sexual escapades in the bedroom. And it requires a long-term, deep, meaningful relationship that must be carefully nurtured and groomed. Like a long-distance race, one critical factor is your ability to endure to the very end. Starting well with a good wedding is good, but you must have the capacity and the ability to endure to the very end. Your love needs as an individual definitely also will vary with your growth needs and various stages of life. Obviously, love between unmarried people and between teenagers is very different from love between married couples. The changing scenes of life that tend to place stress and demands on your love relationship. And the demands of love cannot be handled by immature people and people who are frail. You must grow to love each other through every stage of life. As we learned last week, love will have seasons. There will be spring, there will be summer, there will be autumn, and there will be winter. You need wisdom to handle the seasons and behave appropriately. Seasons are not bad, but they are meant to grow and develop into your full potential. Let's quickly look at some of the challenges that will require and impose life adjustments. There will be financial challenges you have to deal with when you marry and make adjustments. One person may be like spending a lot and take you into debt. One person may already be in debt and be very covetous. You want to buy something, but now you have to save and plan together. Another adjustment you have to make will be your communication, where you find out that you now have to choose your words very carefully to be able to bond and not use communication to dominate and argue. And one of the things you'll find out in marriage is people argue unnecessarily and they tend to show their argument skills. You have to learn to share your life and bond better through your communication skills. There'll be changes in your sexual activity. Some may lack and be disinterested, especially during pregnancy. You also have to deal with in-laws and extended family. And then your X factor. If you have been in a relationship before marriage, you'll deal with the X factor who seems to make incursions into your relationship. Then there'll be an attempt to define what roles to play as spouses. Who does what in the family. You can imagine also what happens when pregnancy and children begin to arrive. What do you do with pregnancy? What do you do raising children? How do you handle fresh babies and combine it with your relationship? Then there are character flaws to deal with, especially when there are third parties involved and there's a mistrust amongst the couple or between the couple. You also have to deal with physical and emotional swings, menopause and midlife crisis, premenstrual tension as you grow. Then there's the environment you live in, the changing needs and the stages of the marriage in the environment you live in. So let's say there's inflation, there's a bad government, there are cultural issues to deal with, there are demands on you in the environment you live in. How do you handle those changes in an African environment especially? Then one of the things that you will definitely come across as a married person are spiritual attacks and generational and family challenges. And preparation is a sure way to guarantee success and a soundness of mind in every endeavor. You have to prepare for the marriage and not the wedding. Broadly, your preparation should require and cover three main areas. But just before I go there, a very key and fundamental item that will help a lot in your marriage is your financial preparation. Somebody say financial preparation. You see, this creates an environment where your basic needs of life for food, clothing, and shelter hopefully are met. So if you want to marry, but you don't have any plan for your food, clothing, and shelter, which are basic needs, you are going to have a lot of challenges. That is not, see, there's no, it's interesting that no religion spends that much time on praying for these needs, apart from Christians. And sometimes in many meetings, all people are praying for is for food, for clothing, for shelter. When that is as a result of hard work. So instead of spending all your time praying for food, for clothing, and shelter, you should rather get yourself into a gainful employment, work hard, and be able to meet these needs. And you'll find out that in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, meeting these needs is an affirmation of your faith. So if you look at 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, the Bible says that, but if any, shall we all read it together? 1, 2, go. But if any provide not for his own, and specially for those of his own house, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. He has done what? Denied the faith and is worse than somebody who is not even born again. So the Bible is saying that when you are getting married or you are getting into a marital relationship or you are bringing somebody to your own house, you must be equipped to provide for them. And I think that one of the basic things to sustain your marriage is your ability to provide food, clothing, and shelter. And it's one of the things you must look out for when you are going to get married. That you are at least going to have a place to lay your head, have food to eat, and have clothes on your back. So when I talk about financial preparation, you may not need a lot of money to fall in love or to start the relationship. But definitely the progress of the relationship into a marriage or a lasting one will definitely require some financial planning and preparation. And you must be capable of meeting these needs. Else the Bible says that you have denied the faith and you are worse than an infidel. Is somebody hearing me? So anybody who's going to get married, make sure that you can at least provide food, clothing, and shelter. Okay. Relationships cost money to maintain and grow. And your marriage will demand money and financial resources to sustain the relationship. So today, I'm speaking about the demands of a marriage relationship. And I want to ask a few questions. Where are you taking your spouse? Into a bondage of lack, debt, misery? Or are you taking each other into a life of fulfillment and hope? What will happen if your wife gets pregnant? So definitely you find out that marriage needs more than a feeling of love. If you allow me, I'll call it that there must be financial love also. So apart from the way you feel, you must have enough money to support it. Otherwise, you will crash early. Is somebody hear me? So that is why when you are young and you are not employed and you are not working and you think that you are very active, say I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend. See, the underlying questions is what future you are going to have. Is it going to be a bondage of debt, lack, sleepless nights, no place to lay your head because you haven't planned enough? So when I speak about financial preparations, whilst you are in school, you need to be aware of why you are in school. To be able to be gainfully employed and earn enough to support yourself and your family. You go to school and learn a trade to support yourself and your family in future. Get a job and earn money. Whilst you are unmarried, focus on learning to save money and start investing so you can secure a good future and be responsible and well adequate to look well after your family. Don't be impressed by we went to eat here, we went to do this here. You see, look beyond the dating and start thinking about, will I have a place to lay my head? Would I have clothes to wear? Would I have food to eat? Avoid spending on non-essentials and learn to budget, especially for the future, because I prophesy to you, rent will come. You will have to buy soup. You will buy toothpaste. You will go to the hospital. You will now buy furniture. And you will need a car, etc., etc. And all these things are not love. They are money. Is somebody with me? So you need to start thinking. If you're in a romantic relationship that seems to rocket you up to the sky, please calm down and walk in love. Don't just fall in love. Life changes as we grow, and our needs will also change, and they are not static. The demands of love will grow and vary as we also grow and change. It may include your diet, your emotional needs, your physical needs. So obviously, the love with which you marry cannot sustain your future needs because your needs currently will change as you grow. Is somebody hear me? So the demand placed on you to grow up because you meet people's emotional needs. So you may, forgive me, you may be in love now at this stage, but remember that that's not the complete person. The person will change. Physically, you will also change. Your energy levels and your looks will change. And you've got to start thinking about that. Because the person you meet is not going to remain that person forever. Look at your mother and look at your father. They were not like that 20, 30 years ago. So you'll change. And the needs as you change will also be different from the needs you are meeting now. So it is important. There are things we must accept and adapt to so we can continue to stay married. Of course, all these changes, whether physical or emotional, will have influence and implications on your relationship. And so obviously we can see that when people divorce, it is not necessarily because they are bad people, but sometimes because they are not able to adapt to the changes of their relationship. And primarily, people who do not grow in learning and are unable to transition through the stages of their marriage relationship may end up with a bad relationship. So if today you are doing well, continue to learn and look for wisdom so you can grow to the next stage and still remain married. All these changes must be managed at various stages and transitions of the relationship. And they will demand that you negotiate and grow your maturity to handle especially the physiological and psychological changes of your spouse, especially in the areas of your sexual activity, because I prophesy to you, it will change when you get pregnant. It will change when you start having children. Your communication, the things you laugh and joke about, will change when you marry. And then your finances, the amount of money you need when you marry is very different from before you get married. Before you get married, most likely you are not spending on school fees. You are not paying rent. You are not buying furniture. You are not buying soup. You are not buying daily food. But these are things that you will end up with, that you must do daily. And so your people sometimes before marriage and after marriage is like, wow, there's such a great difference, and nobody prepared you for it. And all of a sudden you wake up with a shock. And it's like, what? I never expected this. And then the statement I keep hearing very often is that my spouse has changed. He wasn't like that. Of course, I'm preparing you. There will be major changes. And I want you to expect it. I thought somebody would say, I receive it. So in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, one of the things that is going to happen is that you have to make necessary adjustments. And I've told you, you yourself will change. A lot of things about you will change when you marry. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4, let's all read it together. 1, 2, go. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves. Verse 4. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. No, read it again. 1, 2, go. Let nothing, let's read from verse 3. 1, 2, go. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem each other better than themselves. So, how are you going to relate with your spouse? You are going to start considering your spouse before yourself. Verse 4. Look not every man on his own things. Don't go with the mind that it is what I want. It is what I think. This is what I no. It says, but every man also on the things of others. So you are going to think about yourself, but you must also think of another person. So the adjustment you have to make in a marital relationship, number one, is that you have to learn to think in terms of two and not one. Before you married, you're thinking of yourself. Now, every thinking, you have to think of you and your spouse. It's no longer I, it is we. So it is no longer my money to spend, it is our money. So I used to earn 100 cedis. Now it's not just for me. I'm going to spend that 100 cedis on the two of us. It is we. It's no longer I'm going to buy a shirt. What will the effect be on the two of us? It's no longer I'm going to buy earrings because that's what I want. It is what will the effect be on the two of us? And this is a paradigm shift that many people haven't yet adjusted to. They are married, but they are still thinking of themselves, not themselves. They are thinking of themselves as individuals, not on themselves as a couple. You start thinking about yourself. So, what time do I even close work? It's not just about me. Because there is somebody waiting for me at home. There are children waiting for me at home. There are issues have to be dealt with at home. So, I normally will stay and close at a certain time, but I have to rethink. Maybe when I close, I go and sit down with my friends and we go and chat. Now I have to rethink. Somebody's waiting for me. So you find out that a married person's thinking requires adjustment. And then you must be willing to give up your interests, your plans, and your preferences, not always insisting on your own. So now let us look more closely at what I consider the demands on a married couple. The duties and the demands that are thrust on a couple revolve around three major things. Number one, managing the home. Number 2, managing your spouse as a person. And number 3, managing the marriage relationship. What is number 1? Managing the home. So both of you are now going to manage a home. Number 2, you are going to manage yourselves individually. So I'm going to manage my wife. My wife also has to learn to manage me. And number 3, we are going to manage the marriage relationship itself. So everybody who gets into a relationship of marriage has to learn that this is what I'm going to be confronted with. And therefore, I need to start equipping myself with the skills to be able to handle these things effectively. Are we ready? Are we ready to learn? Okay. Titus chapter 2. Look at verse 3 to 5. And let's look at a few truths in this verse. 1, 2, go. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. So this is an elderly person in a marriage relationship. That there's a behavior that now that you are a married person and you are growing up, these kind of things should characterize your relationship. But look at verse 4. What does it say? That they may teach the young women. No. So the older women are going to do what? Teach the younger women. So one of the things I suggest about a good relationship as a young woman in marriage is that you must have an older woman you can learn from. Because her experience is something you can glean a lot from. You know, I usually tell you about an 86-year-old man who called me and advised me about marriage. And it was a very interesting meeting because at the point of advising me as an 86-year-old man, he was at the point of divorcing his wife, who was 76. So the man is 86 or 84 and the woman is 76. And he calls me a young man. I was in my early 30s then. And tells me, Pastor, advise that woman. She's a very bad woman. I can't live with her again. And I was like, what? At 84? Then I just said to myself, no matter what you are now, there's something you don't know. Because you haven't been 86 before. And you don't know the challenges of an 86-year-old person who is married. Because things have changed. So if you think that, as for me, dear, I'm okay, I'm like this. You see, you must learn to negotiate every stage. Because at a certain point, the children will also leave home. And that's another whole thing. And you will be old man and old lady. And your needs will be different. Your needs at this point may not be sexual. But there will be emotional needs. And that is why we keep learning. And that is why sometimes when you find a young person who is just speaking a lot of things he doesn't understand, you just keep quiet and watch. Because you have no idea. It says, let the aged women teach the young women to be what? To be sober. Not to behave like they are drunk. Or they are influenced with something. So when an old woman is going to teach you, you tell you, there are a lot of things. Cool down. Because you have to deal with a lot of things you can't just be infuriated about. So the older woman will teach the young women to be sober. Number 2, to love their husbands. I thought the younger women were already in love. I thought if you're a young woman married, you're already in love. But now the Bible is saying that somebody will teach you, somebody who has been through it, knows a lot. And that person can guide you in a particular way how you can continue loving your husband. Because the love with which you got married has changed.